So I'm starting to see an interesting trend here at CES 26, and that is the idea of repairable laptops. This is the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Carbon Gen 14 Aura Edition. It's a mouthful, but let me show you just how easy it is to user repair. So I'm going to quickly tear apart this demo unit that they have here, and luckily the screws have already been unscrewed for me. There are 4 for the back plate here. We're going to put that to the side, and then we can see we have access to the internals. And guess what? It's only 5 more screws to easily and simply take out the battery and swap that out. Now obviously there are a lot of things on here that you can replace. You got the SSD, unfortunately the RAM is soldered on, whatever, but you actually have access to the USB ports if you want to swap those out, or if you want to, something gets broken, it's easy to get to those. But it doesn't stop there. Check this out. I'm going to flip it back over, and with 5 simple screws on the other side, you can actually pop out the whole keyboard. Say your keyboard gets worn down, or maybe a button stops working. It's just that simple to pop out the keyboard and replace it. And you can see they changed this frame. I think they called it the space frame or the S frame, something like that. Anyway, it's a magnesium frame, and they made it so that it's easy to access the parts quickly and in a way that you haven't been able to do in other previous versions of the X1 Carbon. Look, you got access to the speakers here with a couple simple screws. Here's the access to the ports. Now Lenovo doesn't have the idea of upgradability in mind necessarily, but if you think if the next generations hold with some of the same design, maybe there is a little bit of repairability, but really the upgradability is something that we just have stopped seeing in laptops recently, and this is an awesome change. Now the idea of repairability is nothing new. Sure, there's the frameworks of the world and stuff like that, but usually you have to give a little bit of a trade-off. Something has to give for the idea of being able to have things easier to access, right? Lenovo tells me that no, actually, this compared to the previous version of the laptop, they're not changing anything. The battery isn't getting downgraded, the cooling capacity isn't. They actually tell me the cooling capacity has increased. So what they did was look at the design they already had in the previous generation and said, how can we make this more efficient, and then add the repairability options on top of that. So the motherboard has gotten smaller. The cooling, because of that, has been able to increase. The actual fan size has increased, so it gives a little bit more thermal headroom. And once again, I asked the rep, I was like, yeah, but something had to give. Smaller battery, more cost, things like that. Lenovo said no, we sat down with what we had and we were happy with it, which it is a nice, thin, light laptop. I don't really need it to be that much thinner, but all they did was, just make it more efficient. And this is a trend I love to see. But right now, unfortunately, we're seeing it more in the enterprise level kind of devices. So this is a ThinkPad. This is meant to deploy to a large organization, so your IT manager can use their services easier. But I really want these companies to start thinking about bringing these down to consumer laptops as well. Imagine if there was a Yoga that had a little bit more repairability. Would that do well in their lineup? I don't know. I think so. I think people like the idea of being able to swap out or repair some of their devices, but you let me know. Do you prioritize that in a laptop that you buy? Because I do, and I'm really, really glad that I'm starting to see more companies adopt this. Even though it's at the high end and mostly on the enterprise stuff, I think we'll cross our fingers and it'll trickle down. And the last thing I should note is this is not a concept. This is a shipping device. Lenovo tells me it's going to start at $2,000 and it's going to launch in Q1. Once again with Intel Core Ultra Series 3 chips, so Panther Lake, things like that. And you will be able to buy the replaceable parts on Lenovo.com, but they say they have a healthy aftermarket, so you should be able to get a lot of options. And I'm kind of curious to see if people start modding or like adding like a different keyboard to the whole system now that it's kind of out there. So yeah, I'm very interested, but it's not the only cool stuff we've seen at CES so far. You want to subscribe here on PCWorld to check out more hardware and software coverage. We'll catch you in the next one.